My son went to prison when he was 22 years old. He was sentenced to 15 years. I visited him every single month for 11 years, 4.5 hours each way, until the day they let him out. People asked me how I could do that, how I could stand by someone who had done what he did. I always gave the same answer. He is my son. That is the whole answer. But here is what I never told anyone. The thing I have not said out loud until now. There was a moment, one Sunday morning, 2004, when I almost didn't go. My name is Cecilia Vargas. I am 74 years old. I was born in East Los Angeles, Boyle Heights, in 1952. My parents came from Oaxaca before I was born. We were not rich. We were not poor. We were working. I married Eduardo Vargas in 1973. He was handsome and funny, and I was 21, and I thought that was enough. It was not enough. He left when Marcos was 5 years old. He moved to Fresno. I did not hear from him again for 17 years. I cleaned houses. For 26 years, I cleaned other people's houses, on Brentwood, on San Marino, on Hancock Park. I knew where they kept everything. I knew their habits. They did not know my last name. Marcos was a good boy. I want to say that clearly. He was quiet. He helped me. He did his homework at the kitchen table while I made dinner. He never gave me trouble, not until he was 19. At 19, he started spending time with a group of young men from the neighborhood. I knew 2 of them from church. I thought, they are boys, it will pass. I told myself that for 3 years. Have you ever watched someone you love walk towards something you can see is going to hurt them and you couldn't stop it? You said the words. They heard them. They kept walking. In March of 1995, Marcos was arrested. Armed robbery. A convenience store on Olympic Boulevard. Nobody was hurt, but it was a gun. He was 22 years old. He was sentenced to 15 years in Corcoran State Prison. I remember the exact moment I understood what the judge said. 15 years. I did the arithmetic right there in the courtroom. He would be 37 when he walked out. I would be 66. My mother would be dead. After the sentencing, I sat in my car in the parking lot for 40 minutes. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I just sat there with my hands on the steering wheel and thought, now what do I do? 2 weeks after the sentencing, my pastor, Father Reyes, a man I had known for 16 years, called me into his office. He said, Cecilia, you must separate yourself from Marcos. If you stand by him, you are condoning what he did. I looked at him for a long time. Then I said, Father, with respect, you are wrong. And I stood up and left. I never went back to that church. I found a new one 3 miles away on Whittier Boulevard. The first visit to Corcoran was in June 1995. I woke up at 4 in the morning. I drove north on the 99 in the dark. I had packed a small bag. The rules said only clear bags, nothing metal, no food. I had practiced what I would say. When I finally got to the visiting room and they brought him in, he looked different, smaller somehow. He sat down across from me and said, Mom, you didn't have to come. I said, I know, but I'm here. For 11 years, every month I made that drive. 460 miles round trip. I kept a log. 132 visits in total. I never missed one. Not for weather, not for work, not for anything. I am not telling you this because I want you to think I am a good mother. I am telling you because I want you to understand what loyalty costs. It costs you Sundays. It costs you money. It costs you the opinion of people you respected. In the fall of 1998, 3.5 years in, I got a letter from Marcos. It was 2 pages, handwritten. He asked me to stop visiting. He said, "You are wasting your life on me." He said, "I am ashamed that you see me in here." I read that letter 6 times. I sat at my kitchen table on Malabar Street and I read it 6 times. And then I wrote back. My reply was 3 sentences. I said, "I received your letter. Your next visit is April 15th. I will be there." What I did not know then, what he told me years later, was that my letter was read by 3 other men in his unit. One of them had not had a visitor in 6 years. He told Marcos, "Your mother is the real thing." Meanwhile, my own life continued. I kept cleaning houses. I worked Saturdays. I had a small community of women from church. We called ourselves Las Comadres, who brought me food sometimes and asked no questions. In 2001, my mother died. She was 79. She never once asked me to stop visiting Marcos. She never once said a word against him. At her funeral, I thought, this is what unconditional looks like. Marcos could not come to her funeral. I sat in the front pew, and next to me was an empty space where he should have been. I did not explain it to anyone. Some people understood, some did not. And now I come to that Sunday morning in 2004, the one I mentioned. I had been awake since 2 in the morning. I had a terrible headache. I was tired in a way that was deeper than sleep. I sat at my kitchen table and I thought, I cannot do this today. It wasn't just the headache. I had received a letter that week from a woman in my building. She had found out where Marcos was. She wrote that I was a disgrace, that I was teaching the neighborhood that crime has no consequences. I had read that letter 4 times. When you commit to something long and hard and invisible, no one throws a party for you. No one gives you a medal. You just keep going, alone, and sometimes in the dark you ask yourself why. I sat at that table for 40 minutes. And then I thought of the look on Marcos's face the first time I walked into that visiting room. That particular look. Relief. Like a man who had been holding his breath and finally let it go. And I got up. I made coffee. I got in the car. By 2004, the visits were different. He had changed. He had gotten his GED in prison. He had started reading. History, mostly. He would talk about things he had read, and I would listen. I could see something building in him. In 2005, he was transferred to a lower security facility in Lancaster. Closer. 3 hours instead of 4.5. The visits felt different there. Brighter room. No glass. On February 3rd, 2006, Marcos walked out of Lancaster Correctional Facility. He had served 11 years and 4 months. I was standing in the parking lot. He came through the gate with a paper bag. He had aged. He looked like a man who had been somewhere difficult for a very long time. He walked across the parking lot and stopped 3 feet away from me. He said, "Mom," that was all. I said, "Let's go home." We drove back to Los Angeles without talking much. I had cooked rice, beans, carne asada, the things he used to ask for. What nobody tells you about the day someone comes home from prison is this: the hard part is not over. In some ways, it is just beginning. Marcos could not sleep. He woke at 5 every morning. That was when the cell lights came on, he said. He sat in the corner of the bedroom with his back to the wall. We ate at the same table every night. I would cook and he would set the table. Slowly, slowly, he remembered how to sit and eat without watching the door. It took almost a year before he could eat without flinching at a sudden sound. I want to say something to anyone who has a loved one coming home after a long time away, from prison, from war, from wherever they have been. They will come home and they will not be who they were, and neither will you. You will have to meet each other again. This takes time. Marcos got a job 6 months after he got out, working in a warehouse in Commerce. He was 42 years old. He had a record. He took the bus. He did not complain. One evening, about 2 years after he came home, he told me about a man he had met in prison, an older man named Raymond, who had been in for 23 years. Raymond had no family, no visitors, and Marcos used to check on him. Today, Marcos is 52 years old. He works for a nonprofit organization, Homeboy Industries, in Los Angeles. He works with families. Specifically, he works with mothers and fathers and wives who have someone inside. He drives them to visit. He helps them fill out the paperwork. He sits with them in the parking lot. He called me last year on Mother's Day. He said, "Mom, I had a woman today who was going to visit her son for the first time. She was terrified, and I told her, my mother drove 460 miles every month for 11 years. If she could do it, you can do this today. Do you want to know what 11 years costs? It costs you the quiet years when you might have rested. It costs you the money you spent on gas. I calculated it once, over $14,000 in fuel alone. It costs you the relationships with people who thought you were wrong. But here is what those 11 years gave me. They gave me a son who knows, not in theory, not because I told him, but because he watched it happen. He knows exactly what it means when someone does not give up on you. He has built his whole second life on that knowledge. Last spring, Marcos called me and said, "Mom, there is a woman here. She is 71 years old, and she has been visiting her son for 17 years. She cannot drive anymore. She takes 3 buses. I want you to talk to her." I spoke with her for an hour. Her name was Gloria. She was from Guadalajara originally. Her son was inside for armed robbery, same as Marcos. She had never missed a visit in 17 years. I asked her how she did it. She said, "Where else would I be? Where else would I be?" I have been thinking about those words ever since, because that is the truest thing I know about love. Not the feeling, the decision. The decision you make every month in the dark, when you are tired and it is far and no one is watching. I drove that road 132 times. I know every rest stop, every exit number, every radio station that fades out past Fresno. I know the exact place on the 99 where the fields smell like soil after rain. I am 74 years old. My son is 52. Last Sunday he came for dinner. Rice, beans, carne asada, the same things I always made. He helped me clear the table. Before he left, he said, as he always says, "Gracias, Ma." I don't know who you are or what your situation is, but if there is someone in your life that everyone else has written off, I want you to think about what it would mean to that person if you didn't. Not forever, just today, just this one visit. Loyalty is not a feeling. Loyalty is what you do when the feeling is gone, when you are tired, when people say you are wrong, when it is 4 a.m. and the road is dark and you are driving anyway.